Some time ago, the United States accused China interfering with downstream water resources by building dams in the upper Mekong. It is even said that it has brought serious disasters to the downstream countries. And using this as an excuse, US launched the Mekong Dam Monitoring Project. That is to use a series of means such as satellites to monitor Chinese dams on the upper Mekong. Then the United States as an extraterritorial country. Why are there opinions on China's construction of hydropower stations? And what did they do to their neighbors with water? So today we will find out. US uses water to deal with the dry neighbor in the south. Of course, it's Mexico. A very famous river flows between the United States and Mexico, that's the Colorado River. The total length of 2,320 kilometers originates from the Rocky Mountains of the United States. There is only a short section of about 145 kilometers downstream that flows through Mexico. Eventually enter the sea through the Gulf of California. So how does the United States, as a proper upstream, make full use of the Colorado River? And what is left for his downstream neighbor, Mexico? U.S. builds dams on Upper Colorado River. The most famous of these is the Hoover Dam. It is precisely because of its completion that Las Vegas has completely evolved into a world-renowned, super casino. I think all the people who have been to Las Vegas will go through the Hoover Dam and get a glimpse of Mead Lake. Therefore, it has also become a landmark in the western United States. It is also the filming location of many movies such as Transformers. Of course, the Hoover Dam is just the beginning. Later, the Americans built 14 reservoirs and 32 large-scale irrigation projects on the Colorado River. It can be said that Americans use the Colorado River almost perfectly. Turn towns into cities and deserts into fertile fields. The river water is inexhaustible, the electricity is inexhaustible. If the Colorado River is an inland river in the U.S., you can use it like this. But it's what you share with Mexico after all. Do you take advantage of this, taking into account the feelings of the Mexicans? Let's look at the map to see how Americans are using the river against its neighbors. We came down the Colorado River near the U.S.-Mexico border. See here, the Americans built a dam, Imperial Dam. This dam is not big, so there is very little information about it in China. I can't even find the official Chinese translation of it. I'll just call it the Imperial Dam. The Imperial Dam is small, but it works. We can clearly see the dam blocking the Colorado River form several tributaries. Let's first see where the tributary on the left goes. It is very long to the west along the tributary. Here we all notice a white line. This is the U.S.-Mexico border. We follow the tributary further west. Seeing this, the United States has finally made an interception point. One flows north to the interior of the United States, the other one converges here after making an upward turn. This is Brock Reservoir. It can be clearly found from Wikipedia that it is an artificial reservoir dedicated storage for the inexhaustible Colorado River water. If you think that such a small reservoir can't hold much water, then let's see. We return to the interception point just now and continue westward along this tributary. Seeing this section, this tributary is already close to the U.S.-Mexico border. Note that this tributary is a man-made canal and not a natural river. So it's not a natural dividing line between the U.S. and Mexico. On the contrary, this man-made river came into being after the U.S.-Mexico border. And we noticed that the color of the irrigation canals in Mexico is slightly different from the United States. The Mexican side is cloudier because it comes from elsewhere. We'll talk about this later. It can be seen that although the United States built this tributary, but Mexicans can only see but not touch. The tributary reaches the westernmost edge and then turns north into the U.S. hinterland. We can see that the desert where the Colorado River passed became an oasis. And this tributary eventually merges into the uppermost Salton Sea. Is this a natural lake? No. It is also an artificial lake built to divert water from the Colorado River. It can be seen from the map that it is much larger than the reservoir just now. Chinese though translate it as Salton Lake, but Americans call it sea. This is why U.S. has turned American towns into cities and deserts into fertile fields through several interceptions of the Colorado River. So what is left for the Mexicans? Let's go back to the Imperial Dam. The United States blocked part of the river from the left. The remainder flows down to irrigate farmland near Yuma County into the Colorado River as part of the U.S.-Mexico border. After being blocked many times here, Mexicans finally get a taste of Colorado River water. This is Morelos Dam. The eastern section is in the United States but is used by the Mexicans for all day-to-day use. This dam finally brings river water to irrigate farmland north of Mexico. It's the slightly lighter color of the Colorado River water in Mexico just now. After several interceptions, Colorado River water from north nearly dries up after entering Mexico. The Colorado River has reportedly not flowed into the sea since 1998. Seeing this, many people may say most of the Colorado River flows through the United States and the Mexican section is only a small section. And the United States finally let Mexico use the river water. Looks like Americans aren't that bad. If you think so, you are dead wrong. This last bit of river water used by Mexico is not unconditional. The United States and Mexico have signed a transboundary water agreement. The two sides agreed each year the U.S. supplies 1.85 billion cubic meters of water to Mexico through the Colorado River. And in return Mexico needs 431 million cubic meters of water from the Rio Grande to the U.S. Where is the Rio Grande? At the junction of New Mexico and Texas with Chihuahua and other states in northern Mexico. Although the river originates in the United States. But the largest tributary in the middle reaches the Conchos River, originates in Mexico. The downstream reaches as long as 2018 kilometers, which is the boundary river between the two sides. U.S. to avoid downstream drying up affecting irrigation in southern Texas. So Mexico needs to keep pouring water into the Rio Grande. This is the origin of the aforementioned treaty. And the treaty stipulates that the debt will be repaid in a 5-year cycle. That is 2.155 billion cubic meters of water. The most recent cycle happens to be from 2015 to 2020. In 2019, Mexico was hit by another severe drought and had a deficit of 426 million in water debt. So I can only cut off water for Mexico's own people to pay off the debt. Mass protests erupted in Chihuahua State and 2 people are said to have died. No way. If you don't pay it back, the President of the United States will punish you. This is how America uses water to bully Mexicans. The boundary wall construction is only an appearance. Especially the means of using water to control Mexico. Then maybe someone will say that since the US and Mexico have signed a contract, Mexico does not send water as per treaty, defaults first. How can it be said that the Americans are bullying Mexico? Then we need to see if the treaty is fair. The U.S.-Mexico Resource Treaty was signed in 1944 and it seems fair that the two sides have gone back and forth, but it's a downright unequal treaty. Because in the treaty the United States allocated water from the Colorado River to Mexico. Also added an additional clause, that is, if there is a major drought in the U.S. or a serious accident in the U.S. irrigation system, the U.S. has the right to reduce shipments to Mexico in proportion to its own losses. Also, Mexico may not request additional water for any reason. In contrast, Mexico lost to the United States without such additional clauses at all. In other words, Americans can reduce their supply to Mexico according to their own needs. There is no reduction in the amount of water that Mexico gives away. Isn't this a downright unequal treaty? 80 years on, Mexico is still struggling to pay its water debt every year. It seems time to re-sign a fair, notarized and reasonable water allocation treaty with the Americans. Well, after the above introduction, it can be seen that, on the one hand, the U.S. has continuously accused China of building hydropower stations in the upper reaches of the Mekong River. On the other hand, they use water resources to do such dirty things to their neighbors. In my opinion, it looks like an ancient colonizer in the cloak of democracy use hegemonic thinking to endlessly plunder the resources of other countries. And also judge others against one's own value, believing that China will do the same thing as them. On the contrary, China did not. China has agreed to share relevant upstream water resources data with the Mekong River Commission, which can be obtained by coastal countries. It is important to know that information about water resources has always been strictly confidential in various countries. Because the depth of water flow and the terrain around the water body is a national strategic resource. This is the reason why drones are not allowed to shoot casually near the Three Gorges Dam. China's ability to do this reflects the attitude of a great country to be kind to its neighbors. Will the United States provide its own water information to Mexico? Obviously not. Confucius said, "Virtue is not alone, there must be neighbors." A virtuous man is never alone, there will be like-minded people to accompany him. And apparently the Mexicans don't have such good neighbors. For more than 100 years they have not only permanently lost their vast land in the north, even the river that flows on it has to pay for it and repay its debts. As former Mexican President Porfirio Díaz said, "Poor Mexico, so far from God, so close to the United States."